Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with a popular request, a little chat of this fantastic box, which is apparently still available, the Peter Serkin RCA edition. I went back, I thought we'd done it. I really did when it came out, but I guess not. And the reason I'm sure it didn't happen is because the notes in the booklet, the very excellently written notes, I might add, in the booklet, are by ClassicsToday.com's very own, incomparable piano maven, Jed Distler. And it's our policy not to do reviews of projects in which we've participated, unless there's some sort of disclaimer at the beginning, because we participated in a lot of things, and so we have to disclaim once in a while. But it depends on what our involvement was. But Jed wrote the booklet note and knows these recordings better than anyone in the universe, but he's not reviewing it, or he didn't do it for us. Therefore, I was supposed to do it, and I didn't get around to it. So that's the answer, I think, and I should have, because it's an absolutely splendid set, which you should definitely get your hands on if you care about contemporary music in the first place. And second of all, the very interesting question of how the child of a major artist manages to have a career which, if not exactly as major as Dad's, still manages to be different and individual and significant and musically meaningful and personal and all of those things which Peter Serkin managed. And he was really a beloved figure in the world of classical music and piano universe stuff and whatnot. So let's go through it and we'll see what's in it. If I can get it out, it does this. It's one of these things. One of these things that falls on your foot and kills it. It's got, let's see, how many discs is it? Well, the number of discs is going to be over here. Here we are on this thing. So no, they don't want to tell us. I mean, why should they? It would be far too simple. What's this thing? Here's the lovely booklet with the essay by Jed right here. And we've got 35 CDs. All right, so let's go through it, and we'll talk about what's in it, and we can talk about Peter Serkin, who was just a wonderfully sensitive artist. He really was. Let's see. Oh, my goodness. Yes, 2 recordings of the Goldberg Variations. Goldberg Variations was really an iconic piece for Serkin himself, for Peter, and his performances are quite different. They evolved over his lifetime. Initially, as a pianist, he seemed to be trying very hard not to sound like his dad. Rudolf Serkin was known for having what we call a flinty sonority in the business. Flinty, like flint. That is, he wasn't so much into beauty of tone as he was linear clarity, not insane Glenn Gould-like linear clarity, but linear clarity, and a certain objectivity, perhaps, and he wasn't so concerned with color or touch and tone. I mean, he was an amazingly great pianist, but those were his general parameters. I mean, we talk about in generalities. As Peter Serkin, especially at the beginning of his career, was rather soft-edged, kind of dreamy. He always had a wonderful sense of rhythm and phrase and shape. I mean, how could he not? I mean, given where he came from. But his approach to the piano and to piano tone and touch was totally different from his dad's. And you can hear it in these 2 Goldbergs, because as he got older, you might say he became a little more like his dad, or he became a little bit more interested in linear directness and less chord harmony based in the way he approached the piano. And in other words, he sort of turned from a chord guy into a line guy a little bit. And so his Goldbergs, the first one is a little bit slower, a little bit softer in terms of accent and articulation. The later one is a little bit less so, let's just say. And each is lovely. They're wonderful performances, both of them, but they have very different characters, and that's what's the point. That's what makes them worth listening to. So we cover a couple of discs doing that. Then we've got Schubert, his G major sonata. The Schubert's lovely. The Schubert performances are quite beautiful, also on the slow side. But, if you've listened to Richter's Schubert, you're used to that, right? CD 3, more Bach, the concertos for 3 harpsichords. And we got the Mozart double concerto. and the Beethoven Choral Fantasy with Peter Serkin playing the piano, with Rudolf Serkin playing the piano and Peter conducting. So this is the beginning of his career. There's a place in here where he says that, in the notes, where he says that he had to be careful because he could have wound up being piano number 2 in Mozart double concerto performances for the rest of his career with his father. And so we're not going to get a lot of individuality or personality in these performances, but boy, there's some fabulous pianists up here. In the triple concertos, you've got Rudolf Serkin, Ruth Laredo, Mieczyslaw Horszowski, and Peter Serkin with the Marlborough Festival, conducted by Alexander Schneider. I mean, what's not to love? So, those are nice things to have sitting around. Then we've got, now we've got some really cool stuff here. Oh, baby, do me. The Busoni Fantasia Contrapuntistica. That's a totally crazy piece for double pianos, for 2 pianos with Peter Serkin and Richard Good. And then the Max Reger Cello Sonata number 4. Who knew? There were that many of them with, Misha Schneider on the cello. Really rather cool, isn't it? So that's different. That, by the way, is kind of an interesting, we see interesting thing. I mean, Rudolf Serkin was into Reger. I mean, not so much Busoni. He did the Reger piano concerto. And we can see his son starting to branch out somewhat a little bit. I mean, one of the ways he branched out, of course, was by emphasizing Bach, that is Baroque music, and then contemporary music. Whereas, Serkin did the middle, the Beethoven and the Romantics and the Brahms people, which Peter Serkin, he also did those things too, by the way, but not to the same degree. That wasn't what he was known for. Then we've got Bartok Piano Concertos 1 and 3. Oh, yummy, with a Chicago Symphony and Ozawa. That was a wonderful record. I love that record. Schubert E-flat Major Sonata. A very nice performance of that, along with the Schumann Waldszenen. Now, this was not exactly Serkin's, cup of tea. He did take, again, like I said, some rather dreamy tempos here and there, but, it all works. He really was a smart musician. He knew how to make it last, how to float a melody over the bar lines, as Jed would say. There, I sounded like Jed. Now I have to say that his sonority was deep in the keys. That was a Jedism that we used to remark on regularly. Schoenberg Piano Concerto, 5 piano pieces, and the Violin Fantasy. Oh my God, is that an ordeal? But the Piano Concerto is wonderful, absolutely wonderful, with the Chicago Symphony again and Ozawa. It's a classic, absolute classic recording. Mozart Fantasy in C minor, a very slow performance of that. It's like 19 minutes long, but really, really well sustained. For sure, the C minor piano sonata and the prelude and fugue in C major. Some very individual Mozart playing. Let's just put it that way. And then there's another Mozart disc with the D minor fantasy and 2 rondos and the piano sonata in F major. That's also that rather nice. And the Beethoven piano concerto in the violin concerto and the piano concerto arrangement. Let me get this straight. It's the violin concerto arranged for piano with excruciatingly slow tempos. I mean, the first movement is half an hour long, 29 minutes and 7 seconds. That's what the Philharmonia in Ozawa. And it does succeed in turning it into a rather different piece, I have to say. But boy, that first movement is tough. I liked the performance because I thought it was just an interesting and clever approach to how to deal with what really Beethoven's worst arrangement ever. I mean, the piece does not work as a piano concerto in any way, shape, or form. But in this kind of, Serkin was into like Eastern religions and whatnot. He went to Tibet or something for a while and hung out. And, so there's this sort of Zen-like nirvana approach to the work, which, you'll either love it or hate it. Let's put it that way. Then we get to one of his great loves, Messiaen. What a great Messiaen pianist. He learned all of his Messiaen from Messiaen himself and from watching Messiaen play it and from taking some, I wouldn't say classes, but, some lessons from the master. And we have first the Vision de l'Amen. That's for, piano, 2 pianos or piano 4 hands? Or no, it's 2 pianos. And that's with Yuji Takahashi. Fabulous, fabulous contemporary music guy. And then there's also on this record, Le Rousseau Effarvat, which was the sort of appendix to the Catalogue des Oiseaux, a half-hour-long bird thing. And it twitters and chirps and does its bird stuff extremely effectively. Then we have the series of Mozart piano concerti. There were 6 of them that Serkin did with the English Chamber Orchestra and Alexander Schneider. Legendary Mozart piano concerto performances. Absolutely beautiful. Concerti 14 and 15 here. And then the Messiaen again, the 20 Reger sur l'Enfant Jésus. Classic, well, shall I say, reference recording for those works. I mean, really fantastic stuff. And finally, on CD 15, we get to Tashi. Tashi is the mixed ensemble chamber group that consisted of piano, violin, cello, and clarinet. The people involved were, let's see, Fred Sherry, cello, Richard Stoltzman, clarinet, Peter Serkin, piano, and Ada Kavafian, violin. An amazing group of young, enthusiastic avant-gardists, and they did the Messiaen Quartet for the End of Time, and that is still the version to have if you're having only one. It's amazing, absolutely amazing. And then all the records with Tashi are fabulous in this set. They really are. And there's a whole bunch of them, which we'll get to. So Mozart, piano concertos 16 and 17. Oh, I love the 17th. And this performance, this was, I heard this performance, oh my goodness. Well, I guess when it was new, and it had such freshness. It's the performance that made me fall in love with the piece. Let me put it to you that way. I mean, it's just the most jolly, delicious concerto with its gurgly woodwinds and theme and variations finale. And this is such a perky and marvelous performance of it. Then we've got the Trout Quintet with Tashi, with Joseph Silverstein and Buell Neidlinger, double bass and violin, or violin and double bass. And then the booklet is done with the insert put in backwards. So now I have to turn it upside down like this. And keep my place, because that way we go to CD 26 from CD 17, and I have to jump over this middle thing because it's in backwards. There's CD 27, 17. Where's 18? What happened to 18? Oh yes, now I see. It goes backwards, and yeah, I turn it upside down like this. And then we go like that. Okay, thank God. CD 18. Little printing error there. Mozart Piano Concertos 18 and 19. Again, they're part of that wonderful group of 6 that was simply amazing. Then we got more Tashi. Stravinsky, L'Histoire du Soldat, the Septet, and the Pastoral. 3 pieces for solo clarinet, and the Suite Italienne. These are just wonderful performances. I mean, let's just leave it at that. Anything Tashi did, you should hear. And that's really, really great. Then we've got more Tashi, Beethoven, the piano and wind quintet, and the trio for piano, clarinet, and cello, with, all these other extra people. We don't have to get into who they are. The Mozart clarinet quintet with Stoltzman, and the Mozart piano and wind quintet, which is also glorious. And there's a wonderful analysis, by the way, of the Mozart and Beethoven piano and wind quintets, which by Donald Francis Tovey, which is just brilliant, and which you should look up if you have a chance, because, everyone usually says that Beethoven, was better, and that Beethoven did, expanded and did more things. And Tovey says, well, here's a chance we have to turn tables because the Mozart's the greater work. And actually, he's right. It's a wonderful little comparative analysis. Then we got some Chopin. Now, Chopin was not always in Peter Serkin's wheelhouse, nor was it in his dad's wheelhouse. I mean, Rudolf Serkin was a, hardcore, German school pianist, and the more Frenchified style of Chopin and his crew, based on Italian opera and bel canto and all that, was not Rudolph's thing. It was more, I think, up Peter's alley, although, again, there are some very slow, dreamy tempos here or there. But then again, he tended to select works that didn't require the most hard-hitting of attacks. This particular disc, for example, has his variations on Je vends des scapulaires from the opera Ludovic by Herold. And then you've got a nocturne, a couple nocturnes, some waltzes, the Berceuse, the Barcarolle in F sharp, a very, very beautifully floated Barcarolle, and some mazurkas. So it's not like polonaises, you know what I mean? Like the harder hitting or the harder hitting etudes. And it suited him. Takemitsu. Well, Serkin and Takemitsu also had a very good working relationship. And he interpreted his music beautifully. And this is with Tashi. You get Quatrain 2, Waterways and Waves. Takemitsu was a water guy. See, Messiaen was like the bird guy. And Takemitsu, who admired Messiaen very much and learned a lot from him, was a water guy. So you actually put the two together and you have a bird bath. Yes, you have the birds in the water, Takemitsu and Messiaen hanging out. There we go. Then there's another Chopin disc. Well, you do have the Polonaise Fantasy in A flat, and then some waltzes, and then more nocturnes and an impromptu. Gentle, beautiful Chopin for the most part. The Diabelli Variations. Well, this, of course, was a Rudolf Serkin classic, and Peter Serkin's version is very different from his father's, because Rudolf Serkin's is all sort of coiled energy and textural clarity and accent, and it's very, very almost brusque in places. This is just the opposite. This is I keep saying dreamy is the word, but that always sounds like it's non-directional, which isn't true at all. It's just highly directional, beautifully directional, but it's just gentler. It's more lyrical. It has, as you get to the end, it has an almost sort of transcendental quality, if I dare use the term. I mean, what does that mean? You have to really talk about touch and articulation and phrasing and all that, which I can't really do here. But when you hear it, those qualities come over quite well. It's a lovely version of the Diabellis. And then there's another Chopin disc of Mazurkas, the Ballade No. 3, the Impromptus, the Nocturne in E flat, and the Andante Spianato and Grand Polonaise, which may not be Serkin's best Chopin, but he gives it a shot. Notice how the first and fourth ballades, the really big ones, they're not on here. He didn't do those, at least in this set. Then we have to go, we're backwards. We're going back now to, I have to try and, let's see, that was 17, and now we're on, where were we? We just did the Chopin, so that was CD 26. And if we go this way, we should get back to, 27. The greatest Anton Webern chamber music disc ever made, if you're into Anton Webern. The quartet for violin, piano, tenor saxophone, and piano, and viola, violin, and other things. Yes, those four things. And then 4 pieces for violin and piano, the piano variations, and 3 little pieces for cello and piano with Tashi. Yes, Tashi. More Takemitsu. Uninterrupted rests, piano distance, 4 away, Les Yeux Clos, and Litany. That's all with Peter Serkin playing the piano. Then we've got the Berg Chamber Concerto with Peter Serkin, Isaac Stern, and members of the London Symphony under Claudio Abbado. That wasn't an RCA recording. That was a Sony recording, you may recall. And this is coupled actually with the Berg Violin Concerto with Isaac Stern and Leonard Bernstein. A very underrated performance of the Berg. It's a wonderful, hot, heavy, decadent, passionate performance. It's terrific. Then we've got a disc called In Real Time. These are all works that were commissioned or written by or written for Peter Serkin by Peter Lieberson, Oliver Knussen, Hans Werner Henze, Alexander Goer, Berio, Kirchner, more Takemitsu. Really kind of cool stuff that he was, that was written for him and that he plays with complete confidence, of course. Then we've got the Bach Italian Concerto. That's coupled to the newer recording of the Goldberg Variations, which goes to show you that the newer one is zippier because it has a coupling. And then Peter Lieberson's King Gessar for narrator and chamber ensemble, in which Peter Serkin is piano 2, Emmanuel Axe is piano 1, Yo-Yo Ma playing the cello. I mean, Serkin was, as you could tell from this, just a wonderful chamber music partner. And he that's sort of a unique little piece there. If you're curious about, I hate things with narrator. Ugh. And I like Peter Lieberson. I really do. I mean, he's a wonderful composer. He passed away in 2011. Wow. Really a fine composer. But narrators, narrators. There's only a couple of pieces with narrators that I can sort of tolerate. So then we get the Bach 2-part inventions and 3-part sinfonias and the 4 duets Those are delicious, wonderfully vibrant performance. And Beethoven sonatas, not stuff he did very often. So we've got sonata number 13 and number 14, the Moonlight. It's a pair. It's nice to put them together because usually you only hear the Moonlight with other Beethoven named sonatas. But, in typically intelligent fashion, Serkin put the two together, and they're good performances. They really are. The Appassionata Sonata, which has a rather measured account of the finale, at least initially, but a dazzling account of the coda, where it speeds up at the end, as Jed points out in his notes, and you can hear for yourself. Then we've got the Bach Brandenburgs. It ends with the Bach Brandenburg Concerti with Pablo Casals conducting, and Peter Serkin is playing the harpsichord continuo, except in like the fourth concerto where he's splitting with the continuo part with his dad on piano. It's an eclectic Brandenburgs, but you'll never hear a more humane and musically pointed Brandenburgs. I mean, it's one of those performances that you kind of feel is more authentic because you got a bunch of incredible musicians all just getting together and making music, and the questions of authenticity or whether you do it this way or that way, it's irrelevant. The piano cadenza in the fifth Brandenburg, of course, is Rudolf Serkin, not Peter, by the way. But it's just wonderful music making with Pablo Casals running the whole thing. I mean, those were such great performances. We badly need a Pablo Casals Marlboro or whatever box, a new Pablo Casals box. We need it. We need it badly, really badly. But that's another box and another issue. So that, my friends, is the entire Peter Serkin edition. It's a very interesting and eclectic assortment, put this away, of repertoire. Not the usual stuff, but amazing in quality, in integrity, in musicality. The guy was one of the greats, and he managed, like I said, to carve out a niche for himself that was not his father's and was nonetheless distinctive and rewarding. And so if you care about, really fine piano playing and you are interested in this repertoire, then you definitely have to get this. It's that simple. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks so much for joining me. Take care.